When I did research, if I'm gonna have it taken out, fine, you know. I don't-
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee on Monday, August 12th at 6:45 PM. Bernier is here, Newman,
Here.
Moore. Here. Yates.
Here.
Brenda,
Just a couple things. There was, Complete Lawn Services. I got, like 3 invoices from them for the fertilizing of the park. They had said, you don't pay us all summer, and I said, well, that's because I didn't get any bills, so. And they sent them out to me on time, so that's why that looks like that.
Mhm.
And I don't know if they sent out to the baseball clubs or not, or if I have to bill them, because didn't the baseball used to pay for
I know
half of
nothing
it,
about
but they
that.
do it in the fall? I have to double check with Jess on that.
I don't know about that.
What else is on here? Series contract is like a 3-month one. They-
Treatment.
It's quarterly. Trend, yeah, sewer. Maintenance. Pretty much all normal. Normal things, couple of refunds for occupancy. Full refunds for citations. Yeah,
Can I ask you what this, the care homes is?
that's a occupancy bond.
Okay.
When they pull both building permits, they give us a bond so that they make sure they complete their landscape stuff.
Okay.
So when they complete it, the building inspector releases it and then we pay it back to whoever paid the permit.
Okay. The other question I have is didn't we at the last meeting vote to change the company that we rent the copier from
Yes.
to Ryan? So when does that go into effect? Cause I see you've got Ryko still on here.
Yeah, we have not got the new copier yet. I was out right after that meeting, so Nicole has kind of done some work with them, the contract and stuff, so I don't believe the new copier's in yet. They said it would be 4 to 6 weeks. So
Okay.
I'm just waiting to hear back from them and then we will do the switch over.
And switch over, okay.
Yep.
Those are the only 2 questions I have. Anyone else?
No.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to present these bills to the village board.
I'll make a motion to recommend payment of the bills as presented by the clerk. I'll second.
I have, I can't even.
Motion.
A motion and a second. To present the bills to the village board. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Taken a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. What? Just like the-
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Village of Planning Board of Trustees meeting to order Monday, August 12th, 2024 at 7 PM. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance, remove any headgear. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a reminder to check your phones, make sure they're silenced. Thank you. Item 3, roll call.
Blake. Here. Palazzolo Roby. Here. Newman. Here. Moore. Here. Grenier. Here. Summers.
Here.
Yates.
Present.
All present.
Statement of public notice.
Has been posted.
Discussion and possible action on the reading correction and approval of the minutes from 7/8/24 village board meeting. Did anybody have any comments or suggested corrections to the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries to approve the minutes. Item 6, committee reports, finance and personnel.
We will cover number 12.
Terry, legislative. You, parks and rec and beautification.
The only thing I have at this time is to be aware that on August 15th, the painters are coming to pressure wash and repaint, this building. So if you have, village business park in the far nether regions of the lot, so you don't get dirt.
Thank you. Public safety.
We had a national night out, success.
Yeah, but pretty good crowd. It was nice setup they had there. It seemed like they had more equipment and stuff there this year than previous years. They had that covered pretty good. I think you're. Public Works, Recycling, Sewer.
We had a TAC meeting this past week, with Sussex and the other members. Still working on the I&I studies. And we're looking at an upgrade to the sewer plant, next year. And, looks like our share is gonna be about $250,000, but, we do have money at the sewer plant for that. We're gonna be working on some paving repair, particularly up in Land and Village Hills. Bonnie Lane is again rearing its ugly head. We're gonna do some repair and patching up there, and we've got to replace the culvert up there. Working on some sign replacement around the village. We have shorting to some, and some need to be repaired and replaced. We're working with a sign firm. Hopefully they're reputable and get something worked out. Then meeting with the tree people on both tree removal for the village that's on the right of way, and then for the residents on the about 10 feet above the right of way. And I'm talking to two firms about snow plowing. That season is coming, and that should be wrapped up next month. That's it.
Jared, can I ask you a question? On Sunday, I was driving down Good Hope Road, coming home from the freeway. From where the quarry was down, is that the weeds were so high, is that part of what Lannon's responsibility is to cut that? Or is that the property owner's responsibility? Because the quarry building and the house that was there and just coming right down, they were very high.
Are you talking about land and stone product side on the south side where they're redoing everything?
No, on the north side.
That's Southwest. Well, the right of ways are Waukesha County
Okay,
and the rest is the property owner.
it is.
And they have dead trees and they have quite a bit of work to do.
Yeah, I saw that, but what I noticed more was the weeds.
Yep.
That were extremely high.
Yep.
Not having gone down that way for quite a while. I was wondering if that was part of Lannon's responsibility, because that might be part of the easement, or what?
I think the county's probably a little behind with all the rain, because I know Main Street up into the Niagara Falls is pretty bad too.
You noticed it too. Okay. Thanks, Jenny.
Sure.
You're talking about that. Yeah.
Okay, and Corey.
I finally got an email Patrick sent me about a noise complaint. Had a conversation with the gentleman, and when he gets back to town, he's gonna call me so I can kind of nail it down. I did talk to Joe from Lisbon, let him know that we're some issues there, try and resolve that, other than that. And, no new emails or call.
Thank you. Department report, clerk's office.
There's no lunch tomorrow. Polls are open from 7 AM to 8 PM. And that's as far as in the future I can get.
Okay. Good luck.
Thanks.
Police department.
You should have all gotten our last month call report in your packages. We have nothing to add or correct.
Thank you, and thank you to all you had quite a good turnout for the National Night Out
Yeah,
too, so.
That was very nice, thank you.
Nice to see such a presence there. Citizens' comments. This is meant for public comments on any subject without any discussion by a board of trustee members or action except if possible referral to a governmental body or village agent. Did not check my feet up there.
I don't think there's any.
Nobody's on there.
I forgot to sign in.
Okay,
Mike Graham, 20545 West Good Hope. Going back to the weeds, I thought the village is responsible for village roads. Good Hope beyond the intersection going west is a village road, so that should be trimmed by the village. I saw them go up that road once with the machine. Custer Lane needs to be done. But then there is a question though, who's responsible for these, the homeowners or is it businesses? Another item I have is the voting booths. I see that ARPA might be spending some money on some new ones. But I also wanna point out that I anticipate that we're gonna have a big vote in November. And maybe they might wanna start thinking about maybe moving this all into the fire hall so you have more room for the crowd. And then I do have a drawing of, a picture. These are the street signs by Davy Jones' place down here on Good Hope Road and Waukesha, Main Street. And right at the corner is a sign that says no trucking over 6 tons pointing to the left. So any truck coming down Good Hope Road from Lemke's or Brant's property or AFW can't make a left turn onto Main Street. I think someone needs to point out that that sign is wrong. And then the sign on Good Hope Road going west to the Main Street, there's a sign that tells you that there's 2 split lanes at that intersection. But that sign is so buried up in the trees that I think that the village needs to contact Waukesha and get them to trim up that stuff so you can see. The other item I have is the last item is gonna be on your referendum. You might anticipate, sharpening your pencils because you're gonna have to look at the budget if this don't go. But, if you're gonna say that this is strictly for public safety, that's great. I have a question though, and the property taxes in the TIF district now kind of like go back to the TIF. How are how if this referendum goes, how does that money get to the public safety? Or is the rest of the village gonna be carrying those people's, money for the fire and police protection? And that's the only comments I have. I will pass this street sign on to the board if they're. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Mike. Any other?
Oh, I have one more comment.
Okay.
None of them microphones are broadcasting you guys tonight again.
Hello?
Not really. And I noticed that if you sit at home watching the owl, that owl keeps looking back here because it's picking up when the speaker did work. It doesn't find you guys at all. Might want to look in to figure out how to tie a new sound system with that owl.
Yeah, I'm actually working on that with the owl system,
Okay.
because this works in the
No,
real,
I'm not hearing it tonight.
you're not hearing it?
Not you
So
tonight.
maybe we can crawl underneath Patrick and turn these up. But what it does is then the owl camera listens to the source of the
Yeah.
sound and it keeps looking up to the speakers. So yeah, I need to get this into that.
Test, no.
Hello? Okay,
Yeah, just a little.
You just gotta be real close to them.
it's probably trying to follow my crazy eyes. Probably what it's-
Lord help him.
Any other citizen comments? Still the crowd in that one.
I'm in Patrick. Lion and Night Owl Lions Club did stuff with bus. And the village and the police department was requested to share that. It did not come out on Civic Plus. We had 3 walk-up donations to stuff the bus. That was it. I don't think that reflects very well on our community. With what the Lions Club. We dropped off several $100 worth of stuff that the Lions Club donated. And in one food drive we did a little bit over a month ago. We donated $1,000 to the fall fleet and 2 minutes of food. So if we're not gonna get any support on stuff for the bus, we may have to look at another way of doing that.
Well, just so you know, I personally donated $100 in school supplies plus 2 backpacks.
And I thank you very much. You were the mystery.
What was the mystery lady? Yeah.
Somebody said. "Lady, you donated." But we only have 2 other donations and other, I collected some at my 50th anniversary.
I would, I think I speak for everyone when I say that we appreciate everything that the Lions does and their partnership with the village. They certainly do a ton to help out and in the community. It's a great organization. I used to be a lot in this in Sussex, and I would encourage you, if you don't see a notification like that go out and you think one should, send out a message to somebody, because we may have just overlooked it.
Now, Jim Fritzloff did request that here last month. And it's something that using the Civic Ready. And I know Brenda's been. Yeah, how do I put it diplomatically, Brenda? She's been in the
Medical
repair work.
Yes, something like that.
Can you guys put out a mailer or something?
Well, we
It was
put it out. on
I posted
Facebook and the
signs.
Lions Club page.
Oh,
The
Uh,
website.
But there was a Civic Ready alert that went out, didn't mention that, and I guess we'll just have to try and figure out who the best contact is.
I know I posted it in the Facebook group for Overstone. I posted something in there about it. Mentioned the bus, but
Typically in the Lions Club, we usually get 300 to 600 shares.
it's a little tough for everybody, but
Yeah. But again, it's, a lot of people don't realize how many people in our village are financially strapped, and along with the people in Falls. That's, I got a tour of the food pantry Sunday morning, and that place is, as they said, not really enough in its huge.
okay, thank you, Don. Any other citizen comments? No. Okay, moving on. Item number 9, discussion and possible action regarding ARPA funds. So Mr. Grimm astutely brought this up. Me and Colleen and had exchanged some communications back and forth with Brenda regarding this topic, because there has been communications out about spending, timing, and of ARPA funds. So we did, it was a good kick in the butt. So we did get together and kind of went through and did a bit of an audit on what we had spent, updated our budget worksheet here, and identified some other possible good uses for the funds. As you'll see on here, I have a couple extra copies I can pass out for the public. if they would like, but. We have most of the money allocated that was budgeted for the village hall, and that'll likely go over a little bit. We have spent a good chunk of the beautification type stuff. The bug line signage stuff, we moved that into the streetscaping program. So with that, that leaves us at about $30,507.45. You may recall that the initial plan was to find a use for the remaining funds in the park. But we are investigating a few other expenses that will likely use some money for, and that is the new election booths. Brenda has requested some new election booths. Possible door assist, so like the handicap, press the button, door swings open for the village hall back here. Getting this water fountain replaced out here with something that actually works and will fill a bottle. And then the village garage out there, we've already, Colleen has already pulled some supplies together. She's been working with the Lions to try to coordinate getting that thing cleaned up and patched up and painted and looking a little bit better, or a lot bit better. So that's the update on where we're at on the expenditure so far. We do have to have all of these funds allocated and under contract by the end of this year. So we do have a few more months yet. And then I believe they have to be spent or used by the end of 2025, I think.
26.
26. But the important part is getting them nailed down this year. There was a question about whether or not we had to have it allocated or actually under contract, and Wendy has clarified that position for us, that it does have to be contractually obligated. So be working on cleaning that up. So I don't think I need any action on that. It's really more just an informational update for you.
Okay.
Item number 10, discussion of possible action regarding operators license.
Dan ran the background check and it came back nice.
I'm just reading it literally. Looks like everything's been checked out and paid. And do we have a motion to approve the operator's license for McDougall?
Well, I just have a question. So if she finished the learn to serve in 2007. I know for my license, we have to do it yearly. And hers expired in 2010.
I think she had an updated one. She didn't have it with her. She had her old one with her or something. For the learn to serve.
You need a copy of that, correct?
We need to know that she completed it. But if she has a license in another community, then they usually just.
And she has that?
I don't know, Dan looked at it and said everything was okay, so.
I was very happy he's got one, learning to serve.com 2007. And I know that this is the stadium, you have to be training everything.
Really, when I used to have my license, we used to just have it once and then you. I think I got after year, 4 years of the year. I never for college every year. I think I wasn't aware of that change for the learn to serve, so I mean, it used to be just if you completed it in the past that you were okay. I guess that's a policy thing.
Can we just check with chief to make sure that that's correct? Yeah.
Well, we can approve it pending submission of the license.
Conditionally.
Make a motion to conditionally approve this operator's license. On the condition that she has met the current licensing requirement.
Yeah.
Let me figure I'd have it ready.
Okay. We got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11. Discussion and possible action on referendum language. So I have been kind of going back and forth with Hector's office regarding how we have discussed in the past doing this and whether or not this was going to be a legal methodology. After doing some research, I did receive a communication today from Trace in Hector's office, stating that they believe that they have found a statutory provision that would in fact allow us to do this in the manner that we propose. What we will have to do, though, is the state has some very specific language that has to be included in the referendum and on the ballots. Primarily, of course, with municipality and what years, and we'll have to come up with a set number. I believe what I'd like to do is reaffirm that everybody is on board with the notion that we had previously discussed of using a number that would equate to 25% of our police department and budget and our annual bill from Menominee Falls for fire and EMS. Public safety. Public safety. So 25% was the amount of that we discussed previously. We'll have to get final numbers from Wendy, of course, but that my rough calculation was that was going to be about $146,000.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is referendums typically have the highest chance of success to pass the first time that they come out. This unfortunately, we're getting very, very close to the November election, which we have discussed putting this on the ballot for. It does not allow us a lot of time, in my opinion, to really effectively communicate why we're doing this and how this may benefit the community. I've looked at a couple of websites from some neighboring communities like the Village of Richfield, who I believe theirs passed recently. Germantown, I believe, is also doing one. They have very extensive information on their website, kind of making the case for why they're doing it. My concern at this point is that if we push forward to try to get this on the November ballot, we may not be able to really give it a fair shake. And so I don't know if we feel that we should press forward still and see what we can get done. Or if we wait until, say, the spring election, and put it on the ballot then. The impact is we lose a year. We lose a year, because then we wouldn't be able to budget for it until next fall instead of this fall.
But if you do it not quite right and it fails, I think that's where we have to be very careful. I guess because I'm new to this part of this, I'd ask any guys his thoughts.
Which one?
We know, Jer. But I guess I would like to see what Hector's thoughts are, because do we have enough time to put this together where we think we can get it passed?
I think the difference between Lannon and Menominee Falls or Richfield is that our size is so much smaller. I think that it's possible that if we made a concerted effort and really pushed public meetings, mailings, whatever we needed to do, it's easier to reach 2,000 people than it is 24,000. And I don't think it's insurmountable. I think that it would take a concerted effort on all of our parts to do the marketing required to have an informed electorate. I think that it's not so much lobbying to get what we want, it's more to inform the people why it's needed and, you know, see if we can get a good turnout. November's a really good turnout. April's not gonna be as good of a turnout, and Patrick, you're gonna be running for village board in April. So I think that also factors into when we put this referendum.
Well,
I would hate for the referendum to affect Patrick's reelection, I guess, maybe.
the problem we're gonna run into is the school referendum just passed in the spring. And that's gonna be a continual rolling, and actually 3 years, I was on the committee for 3 years, it failed twice. We had to revamp the whole process to make it more appeasing, so that people that didn't have kids in the school district, we need more time. No matter if all of us go out there and pound on everybody's door, it's not gonna be compelling enough, especially with their taxes going up already,
And Hamilton just being successful,
right?
that affects our taxes too.
I mean, that's gonna be a lot to push.
I think one of the interesting, and I would like you to weigh in on this if you would, Hector, because I thought you said something at the last meeting when we discussed this. That led me to believe that we weren't allowed to really advocate one way or the other for this. Can you explain that a little bit further for us?
The role of any governmental entity having a referendum is to remain neutral. Now, it's a matter of determination on a case-by-case basis. In other words, most citizens do not have any detailed understanding of reasons why certain budgetary items need to, but haven't been increased. And so the village can go out and put forth facts, but not actively campaign for any particular outcome. If anything, that might turn against the village, because the typical citizen will ask, why are they pushing this so hard? As opposed to, well, yes, we understand that in the community, there is a strong underlying desire to have more comprehensive police services, at least the availability of police coverage. We understand that the county sheriff's department is theoretically the backup, but at the same time, the county spread very thin. And when we do need assistance, time is a critical factor. So those are the kind of things that I believe the village can put forth and explain to people.
What is your opinion on time?
That's a judgment call on your part in terms of how people feel about the level of public safety services presently. Is there a consensus, particularly amongst the newer residents, that there is room for improvement in terms of adding additional coverage hours? Counter argument is going to be, well, with regards to the fire department costs, the village has very little control. And so naturally, that budget amount is going to increase by itself regardless of what the village tends to do. That might be the negative argument that the village needs to speak to. That the increases that the village is inserting in the budget are beyond our control, but not necessarily increases that meet the needs in the village in other respects.
You know, what did you have to do to modify the buildings? Or did you just cut funds or sell it?
We did both, actually. We were originally asking for 54 million. And because they had prior, just 3 years before, asked for that to build SSI. Do some other maintenance to the high school. We had to drop it from 54 to 7.6 rollings. And that's how we were able to sell it, because the mill rate right now for the high school is 1.1%. Which seems insignificant, but you're talking about 30 kids, new kids a year. And that's just before the school year starts. That's what they know of before the end of the school year that's gonna be coming in. Realistically, that number grows to about 50 by the time school starts, or shortly thereafter. Now, that again may sound insignificant, but when you already have 1,800 kids at the high school. And you're considering SSI is almost at cap, because they're gonna be pushing over 800 students, and its cap is 1,000. It's only a matter of time. So they sold it on 7.6 million rolling a year, because that was the easiest way for us to absorb the costs. And our taxes, it was easier enough for them. To be able to control operational costs, getting new teachers and maintaining their salaries. And budgeting for new kids, because unfortunately this school board through the state hasn't been upping the funds for students.
It's basically reduce what you asked for. I don't think 150,000 is out of line.
But it's,
Look at what our public safety budget is.
we grossly need it. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
necessity.
I think the challenge is getting that message out there, right, and helping people understand that currently, you know, the levy limits restrict us so much, and it's not, you know, if we want to keep competitive wages and attract talent, keep talent here instead of, you know, revolving door of police officers, and if we want to have more shifts and more coverage. It's the only way to make that happen. Because it's not in the budget, we're already. Anybody that attends the budget workshops already knows that it's. It's like trying to perform a magic act, just to get it to all work as it is. So that's why I would hate to, you know, lose a year, but again. Do we think it's more important that we wait the year and give it a really good effort and a good chance of success? So that we can do more community education on the topic? Or do we press forward and do the best that we can?
I mean, the advantage to putting this through November. Is if it does fail, at least then you know where people are standing on one side or the other.
Right.
So it does work to a benefit to have that information. The downside is, and like you stated earlier, is if it fails, will it pass the second time around?
Do we have to wait a year or would we go in April?
I believe, yeah, I'll have that.
But then we missed that budget cycle.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
It's better going a year later.
So I'd like to kind of reflect on the water project a little bit. That was a similar all the larger lift. But if you remember, that water project then led informational meetings 3 years prior to anything actually happening. And then there were still people at the 9th hour that said, you can't just shove this down our throats. You know, we've never heard of this before. I think you're gonna have the exact same thing. I don't think it matters if you spend 7 months advertising it, you will have a vocal minority that will be against a tax increase no matter what. And then I think there will be a large majority of residents who have moved to this area and say, well, it's a really nice community, but it does seem to lack some infrastructure that we are used to having from wherever we moved from. And I think that we could use like Civic Plus to put a poll out there, just, you know, to see if there's any reaction from those people, to see if they would be supportive of that. And I think we could do the informational meetings and, I mean, I don't know. I look at the water project and I think we did everything we could over multiple years. And the results were still what I think we're gonna experience here, which is there's going to be a group that will always say no. And then hopefully everybody else realizes that if you want services, you need to pay for them.
Yeah, I think you're right. There will be, certainly, some folks that are just, you know, against it. And that's their prerogative.
Yes.
There will be a decent percentage that, to your point, we will probably never reach.
I think that's changed in that we've doubled our population now.
Mhm.
Before, when we were only 1,000 people,
Mhm.
the adversity group had more say. Now you've got another 1,000 people here that are newcomers, if you will, and don't have that old, man, I can't afford it, can't do it. Especially when you're talking $600,000 homes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what is it, 60
And-
bucks a year?
And we do have, you know, what's the tax key count, Brenda? 740-ish?
Something like that, yeah.
So, you know, it's about, by my rough calculation, it's probably gonna end up being about an extra $200 a year. If, I mean, it's gonna, obviously, it's gonna be more for more expensive houses, less for
Right.
less expensive houses.
Yeah, but if they want the police protection, which they say they want, we don't have 24-hour police protection. You know, when you have one officer at night, and they're done by 9, 10 o'clock. So that's not enough protection around here.
But there's really, maybe you can attest to this, after 9 o'clock, Lane, it's like a ghost town.
Just takes one of them.
You still have to,
Right.
and you have to come.
It's not a matter of if, it's
Yeah, there'll be, you know,
For the weekend.
like the accident that happened, the fatality that happened just earlier.
Well, you're preaching to the choir on that. I think the issue at hand is when.
Yeah.
When do we pull the trigger on this? My opinion is that we should go for November.
Yeah.
If possible, I'm not as privy to the legal, requirements of filing documents in a timely manner in order to get on a ballot and that sort of thing.
Very soon.
It's-
Very soon.
Absentee ballots go out on the 19th and they have to be at the printer 2 to 3 weeks prior to that. And obviously, there's a tight turnaround after this election between the canvases and getting those people printed on the ballot. So within a week or two.
The deadline that we've been given is August 27th.
Wow.
But they would like it sooner at a county.
So
So we got a hot two. So we have one for November,
On November.
Jerry's November, Anna's November.
I am November.
November.
My question with November, this with the presidential election, with all the mudslinging. Are people going to actually listen to what's being offered to them?
It's a different subject.
It's
I know.
It's a distraction
People actually.
We already know what they're voting for.
If people are gonna care about this, they're gonna care about it. If they don't, it's not gonna matter either way.
Plus, this is a nonpartisan issue. This is a leadership, community leadership, and it doesn't, I don't think it,
You're gonna have more of a turnout in November.
I think that's to our advantage.
I agree.
Along with what you had said about, the water issue, how it was talked up for 3 years, and then to this day, we still have people that are fighting, being put on, and they were supposed to be connected in 21. So, it's gonna be, you're still gonna have people, as we all know, you're still gonna have people that are gonna disagree. They're gonna disagree, or they're not gonna vote for it, or whatever, but I think we have to at least try. I think we have to put it out there. We have the largest amount of turnout coming up in November. And maybe to your point, Don, the fact that, it's a presidential one, people are gonna vote, they're gonna be voting. They're gonna come out and they're gonna vote, no matter who they vote for.
And
They're still gonna be out there.
a properly worded referendum, even if you don't
Yes.
reach out to them, could influence them in the booth.
Correct.
I mean, we want to reach them, we want them to be an informed electorate, but a properly worded referendum. Should Lannon offer more public safety services at a cost of, and I just feel like most people would go. Yeah, it's not too much, that's common sense, of course I want police.
But Menominee Falls are
That was
gonna charge.
proposed- that came up at the budget meeting in October.
Yeah.
Wanting more, public
Yeah, they
safety.
wanted more.
Wanted more police presence.
Yep.
So we are now doing it and putting it back into people's laps and saying, okay, we're willing to do this. But are you willing to come back and raise your taxes or whatever we need to do this, put the ball back in their park?
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah. And that's, I think,
Menominee Falls is still gonna charge what they're gonna charge,
So
so
that's not gonna change.
that's not gonna change. It's trying to get more money for our police department.
And we're not
Oh.
gonna have the turnout, like
Yeah.
tomorrow, we're probably not gonna have the turnout like we will in November. And in April, even though we have 3 or 4 sites that are up, you're still not gonna have that big of a
This
turnout.
is gonna be a big
For it.
turnout.
This is the time to do it.
Mhm.
Hector,
Move on.
along the line of, advocating for this, because I thought the same thing that Colleen mentioned about, maybe we could put some polls out there, on Facebook and things like that, but can we really do that either?
In the past, the software. The timing has not been available for that sort of thing. I guess, until someone challenges you on the polls. There's nothing, harmful about, gauging the sentiment of the community.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, no matter what side of the coin one may favor as a voter. This is a pro-police proposition.
Yeah.
Being critical is recognizing their role and it's recognizing that this community has moved from its past needs to the current needs as driven by the increased population that the community has.
And levy limit. Yeah,
Well, yeah, that's
and
all
offering more
Right.
competitive, being more competitive in the employment market as well, so.
Well,
Okay, so do we,
when I first moved into this village, there were 987 people in this village. That was 34 years ago. Now look where it is today.
2000, right?
Yeah.
Remember 2000.
And I don't know if
22.
a survey in Facebook is gonna reach a lot of people, because I personally don't do Facebook.
Yeah, but we can.
But I
go through
have
the
talked
alert
to
system.
people. I have talked to people and I have, when I run into the grocery store, at Walgreens, my neighbors. They come and talk to me about this stuff, and I explain this to them, and they're like, hey, I get it, and I'm all for it. We need this.
Mhm.
They're fine with it.
Right,
I've
so,
not had a negative response yet.
so I would use all available tactics for information, not for lobbying, like something on the Civic Plus thing could easily say, yay or nay, would you be in support of a referendum that would increase, the ability for public safety? I mean, we wouldn't have to swing them one way or the other. We would just say, would you be willing to support a referendum in November?
I think that's a good idea, but will we get it done, will we get it information back in time for the ballots to be printed?
They gotta be printed now.
Within.
No,
in
what
the
I'm
time
saying
frame that
is
she's talking.
using it not because we wanna get a feel for, but using it as something that goes into residents' home to make them aware of it so that they formulate an opinion and they talk to their neighbors about it. I mean, we would do a mailing, we'd have public meetings, we would do that survey, we would do social media, we would do everything we could, a multi-pronged to get as much information out there as possible in as short a period of time. It would just be a commitment on all of our parts to make sure that.
And in the meantime,
You're doing that.
We can't do house to house informational, no, we can't have meetings, we can't do any of
so
that.
you're talking, even in the meantime, we still get it out there.
So we can
Still do a
have,
referendum.
I'm sure we can still have an informational session or a meeting and present the reasons why we're asking for this. I mean, I know that, Dr. Dr. Milky came to our condominium community and did a presentation and
Mhm.
question and answer. So, I mean, I think we just have to be careful about how we do that,
So
is what I'm hearing.
if you write up something, can we put it through like traffic management, give it to them to post on, and send it out to our residents? And then to Whispering Ridge Estates and to North,
Well, I think
so we can reach them personally via email?
probably the most effective and most neutral and probably the best way to do this is if we work with someone like Beth Foy, who has helped us through some of our public relations type needs. Maybe help us develop the information to go on a page of the village website. And then we simply direct people to that resource. Right, that's where you send people, because that's gonna have the consistent message of what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Rather than,
I agree.
getting too much out there,
And the tax implication, I think, too.
that'll be
You
clearly
gotta-
spelled
gotta
out, yes,
go-
per 100,000, this
Yeah.
is what is, how it's gonna
Yep.
affect your
Right.
taxes.
You gotta make the people
Right.
aware of that.
Right, and that's the part that really needs to be clearly communicated, so people truly understand what the impact of the ask is.
Cause that,
Yes. Yeah. So that's not to say we can't do mailers. I think a mailer is still a good idea.
that's legal.
Yes,
Yeah. We can do a mailer, neither for nor against, simply informational, let them know that it's coming up on the ballot.
Have the language in it.
Yep, have the language in it, simplified version. The mailings aren't that expensive, so.
We can get it out quickly.
Okay, so I think we've hammered this pretty well. Let's, sounds like everybody wants to do November. Didn't everyone just reaffirm for me and for Hector, for the record, that you're still good with the mechanical approach to this of the 25% of the public safety budget, which includes police and fire, or the police department's budget and our annual bill from the Menominee Falls Police?
I am.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, that sounds unanimous. Do you want any action?
yes, motion. To direct, you to prepare referendum ballot language, working with, the village's company,
And attorney.
yes.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
So,
We have a motion and a second to do what Hector said. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I, what a comment I have is.
You guys have to. Oh, sell
Yeah. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. A very thoughtful discussion on the topic. Item number 12, discussion of possible action on the payment of the bills.
I make a motion that we pay the bills as presented in the
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Pay the bills as presented. Item 13. the Moment you've been waiting for.
Yeah,
Engineers report.
I have a few things, as Jerry mentioned in his report, the inflow and infiltration on the land and interceptor that goes from here all the way to the Sussex treatment plant. That ratio is pretty high and there's a lot of clear water in the system that's resulting in actual treatment costs that all the communities, including Lannon, end up paying for. So at the recent TAC meeting, we discussed so far in our calculations, getting a handle on what volume of flow that we're talking about, and then the next step over the next few weeks will be coming up with recommendations on trying to further pinpoint where exactly along the entire route clear water might be getting into the system. And we'll be calling for another TAC meeting then in about 4 weeks. On the water side,
Excuse me. Could you, for the benefit of some of the people in attendance and the Newark trustees, review what the village's obligations are with regards to this common system that we manage?
sure, so right out in front of Whispering Ridge Estates, there's a metering station. And there's a pipe that crosses under Main Street and it goes south through Menominee Falls all the way down to Silver Spring Drive. Goes over through Sussex and it goes down south to the Sussex wastewater treatment plant. That whole pipe is referred to as the Lannon Interceptor Sewer. It takes on sanitary sewer flows from 100% of Lannon, portions of the village of Lisbon, portions of Menominee Falls, portions of Sussex. So back in 1997, that was installed and everyone cost shared in that based on how much flow they kind of purchased within the system, a flow allocation, so to speak. Now, the ongoing operation and maintenance of that system is divided according to how much flow everyone actually uses. So inflow and infiltration is just a generic term for clear water that gets into the system, whether it's a deep sewer that's kind of under the influence of groundwater. If there's cracks or leaks in that, then clear water can get in. Almost always in every sanitary sewer system, when it's rainy or there's wet weather, as that water is infiltrating down to the groundwater table, it gets into the pipe trenches, it kind of saturates that and it can get in through leaks. So unlike water mains, believe it or not, they don't build these systems to be like watertight from a pressure perspective. It's just kind of generally watertight, but they're exposed to conditions that they can develop cracks, etc. They can also along the roads, if there's like a pick hole in the manhole cover, and if there's water sitting on top of that, that clear water gets into the sanitary system. If people have leaky sanitary sewer laterals that connect to the system, whether that's root ball intrusion or anything like that, all those create pathways where clear water can get into the system. The effect of that is extra energy costs and wear and tear on the pumps, and then extra treatment costs because all that water ends up at Sussex wastewater treatment plant. So the costs have become like the true costs of pumping and treating that become high enough that and Sussex kind of keeps track of that data. They raised the alarm several months ago. Okay, this requires looking into. So we anticipate, generally speaking, toward the end of this year to have an idea of what the sources are and have recommendations for what types of projects might help reduce I&I. that could include. Lining of the pipes with a more sound pipe liner. Reconstructing some manholes. Suspected there might be some manholes through some wetland areas that they might need to be raised a couple feet so that water during wet seasons doesn't sit on top of the manhole and find its way in.
Another one was been many years ago, people hooking their sump pumps to the
sure.
sanitary sewer. We actually had to go around and even have some police inspections and inspect some houses. Because when we
yeah.
opened the manholes in the streets, we could see clear water running.
Oh, good to
So
know.
then you know it's a sump pump.
So that's all I have for sanitary sewer, couple project updates. For the water system. The water main extension on Good Hope Road west of Main Street, that project is out to bid. The advertisements have posted and the bid opening is August 28th. So by the September board meeting, we expect to come to you with bid results and kind of a summary of how that fits into the remaining USDA funds. Just so everyone knows, or as a refresher, that project is expected to, we're trying to match it identically to use up the balance of the grant funds that are there for USDA. And we're hoping that that is enough to get water main past the bug line. The well house electrical upgrade projects, that will be on pace to advertise for bids the first time, probably the week after we open bids for the water main project. I understand, Jerry, maybe you want to comment on it more, but the generator there is kind of in a dire situation, so it's quite likely that before construction starts on that project, the village may be renting a temporary generator, and that'll kind of help with some of the construction staging also.
Yeah, we looked at the well house and we're gonna put in a sleeve through the wall. It's one of the things I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
And so that we're ready at any time if the generator physically really does die. We've been keeping it going on life support. We can rent a generator from like United Renters, so we're gonna run the cables in the front through the sleeve and hook it up to our electrical panel and have a generator.
Sure.
And we're gonna try to do that as soon as we can, because who knows?
And then lastly, I wanted to talk about the third source. So about a year ago, we started a study that looked into alternatives for adding a third well or a third source of supply to the water system. Couple things have happened since then. One, Land Estates did a lot to fix its leaks. One of the main reasons why it was so urgent to look into a third source at the time was that water use was so high that if one of the two wells were to go offline, the other well in and of itself would not quite be able to keep up with demand. Now that Land Estates has fixed a lot of leaks, we're under that threshold, so if one of the wells went down today, the other would be able to keep up, but it would still be kind of a bit of a nerve-wracking situation. But the fortunate thing is that's kind of allowed more time to look at additional alternatives. So in the past, we've looked at shallow aquifer wells at a couple locations and potentially a deep aquifer well at a couple locations. With DNR coming out with new regulations controlling PFAS chemicals, which are if they're present, they're mostly restricted and found in the shallow aquifer. That just kind of, for various reasons, made the shallow aquifer well options less attractive. If the village is going to invest a lot of money into a third source of supply, it wanted to kind of diversify and make it more reliable long term. Deep aquifer well was looked at along with radiant removal treatment. And that whole package can get to be pretty expensive. So we reached back out to Sussex and talked about the potential for an interconnect, and they actually responded pretty favorably. Their situation has changed in that they realized, whereas they thought they had enough supply, they need more supply. Also, we looked at the numbers and it was on paper feasible that, we each needed about half of what a new deep aquifer well could produce. And therefore, rather than each community building their own, we would stand to gain if we work together and just build one. In really diving into that alternative, the state agencies don't allow for joint ownership of one well. So in just looking at things, Sussex has made it clear their preference would be to own the well, and that would provide enough excess capacity in their system that we could connect a pipe to their system and then use the water whenever we need to, whenever we want to. So looking into that option, there was a lot of talk about, how Lannon and Sussex would cost share in this. And some of the specifics, Sussex took the lead on creating a draft intermunicipal agreement. The village, namely Patrick and Jerry and myself, took just an initial look at that rough draft and provided some categorical comments back to them. And they've produced another draft. I haven't reviewed that yet, but that'll be shared with Hector's office as well. It's anticipated that could be on as early as the September board meeting. It would spell out things like who's responsible for operation and maintenance, who's responsible for putting the interconnect pipe in the ground, et cetera, et cetera. I do want to just put out there that it does include in a connection fee, so to speak, as the mechanism for landing cost sharing in the capital cost to construct that well, which is based on roughly 50% of the cost of that new facility, and that's anticipated to be approximately $3 million. Now, the benefit here in Lannon is we discussed with the Public Service Commission, which regulates water utility rates in the state of Wisconsin. Such payment would not be on the books of the water utility and therefore would not impact ratepayers. So that's a bonus. It's already in the TID project plan as a TID eligible expense. And it's something that the village could presumably cover out of TID funds. So the cost to the rate payers really amongst all the alternatives that we looked at, and interconnect with Sussex was by far the most favorable option for ratepayers.
And does that negate the storage facility? Will we still build a water tower someday?
So what we have put into what we've done with rounding out our study is we've still assumed that Lannon would need a water tower someday. I can tell you, we've used a computer model to just kind of model all kinds of different water use scenarios for the village. It is quite likely that the interconnect with Sussex would provide enough reliable flow at the correct pressure that Lannon would not necessarily need to have a water tower. Specifically, what drives that is the village's target level of fire protection. Kind of the controlling scenario, so to speak, would be providing adequate fire protection at the apartments. The target there is 2,500 gallons per minute for a 2-hour period. And we've done the modeling and an interconnect with Sussex over there. If the village didn't have any of its own supply sources online, and I mean, you're not running your well or anything else, could provide about 2,300 to 2,400 gallons per minute. So it's awfully close to that. Now, if you assume that the Whispering Ridge reservoir and booster pumps are also online, then that kind of puts you over that threshold and you'd be able to meet that. So I can tell you, because I know this has been a concern of yours or question of yours for a while. In my opinion, this very much provides the flexibility to push that water tower project way out into the future at a minimum, to consider, You know, will it be more affordable in future, closer to the end of the life of the TIDs, or when there's more of a established use base?
Well, we've still got the 80 acres behind the cemetery. That someday
Sure,
gonna get
right.
developed, and that's gonna,
Correct,
probably gonna need fire flow way down
Sure.
there. You might need some type of storage.
sure.
Is that the Winters property you're talking about?
No, kind of from, hold on. Behind the cemetery, 80 acres.
I do know that the property behind my house, Barnes property,
Mhm.
that was behind there.
Mhm.
I was speaking with a gentleman who owns the Blaze Landscaping, that property
Sure.
there. And they would like to purchase. He was telling me they want to purchase that Barnes property.
Oh.
Because what they would like to do is develop kind of what Overstone did. The condos in that area. Unfortunately, Barnes won't sell at this point. So as we all know. What Mr. Barnes is, but that could become a reality someday.
Sure, yep,
At some point that, condo, because they would like to do condos. Behind there,
sure,
and then they would have, if I remember correctly, when that Barnes property first wanted to. Put up apartments back there.
Mhm.
The biggest problem was there was only one access in and out, and that was out onto State Street, which then brought it through all of that. And then when that tavern, that gentleman passed away. Barnes should have bought the Blaze property, because that would have given them the second access
sure,
that they needed, and he didn't.
sure,
But now Blaze is looking to try and purchase it, and they're just kind of biding their time with him.
gotcha,
So if that's the case, then we know at some point that'll be developed.
yep,
And that Barnes property alone was 12 acres.
sure,
And then whatever Blazes, So that there's a potential there too.
sure.
The other question I was gonna ask you is, when you talked about the USDA,
Mhm.
when does that expire?
It expires right now, we're operating under an extension that goes through April of 2025. So we've set up the bid documents so that everything's gotta be completed and ready for final payment prior to the.
And if somewhere way down the road, we end up having, like Barry said, we have to put a tower up, can we reapply for USDA?
You certainly can. Now, the trick is on the water expansion projects. Lannon's median household income was just under the threshold.
Right,
And there's been so much influx, I don't know where that's gonna land. You've got, of course, all the higher priced properties like Overstone, et cetera. So you've also got 270 apartments that went on. Too, so I'm not quite sure how that tracks out. You can always apply and get low interest loans, but the grant portion will be less likely.
and I have noticed Swall is starting to do some work there. On there, you've got basements, basement walls, I've noticed that. There's another.
How many buildings?
32. 16 buildings.
Oh, 16.
Yeah. First phase in the circle is, the gray
Yeah,
circle will be five buildings, 10 units.
But he's doing right now.
And I did want to say two more things about this agreement with Sussex. So, I know I've talked about this before, but the point of connection that Sussex wants us to make is on Good Hope Road, not quite all the way to the railroad tracks, but kind of by their yard waste drop-off sites where they're looking at building this facility. And that, of course, goes through the village of Lisbon. So the village of Lisbon actually their administrator brought up that, hey, if we're putting a pipe through there, they want to talk about maybe getting some of their people connected to that pipe. And then just for clarity, Village of Lisbon has also asked if Lannon would look into water potentially serving them. There's that
Maple Springs.
Laughlin property that's close to Town Line Road, right in front of Willow Springs.
Yep, right in front of the school.
So in the past, I've told the Lisbon administrator that, we could certainly, with with the study that we're doing, we could certainly. For approximately $5,000 or whatever, look into whether or not. Or how exactly that would work. And in the past, that's just kind of fizzled out, but they just brought it up again last week, so. Might work with Jerry to. Kind of sort out. How to move forward in that situation. The second thing on that was. Sussex will be taking the lead on taking this project and applying for a state innovation fund. Grants application. Understand that it might be this week or next week that the state is finally releasing details about the program. It's already been approved by the. Made it through the budget committee and everything, but it's intended to. Reward. Neighboring municipalities for. Finding more cost-effective ways of doing things by working together. And that the state will provide partial grants help with those. Sussex seemed to indicate that what they knew preliminarily is that. It's more geared at more efficient operational expenses. As opposed to explicitly being more efficient capital costs, such as doing a joint well. But Sussex is nonetheless going to take the lead on preparing an application for that. So any grants that would be received with that would be discounted from that project cost and then in turn discounted toward that connection fee.
Thank you, Ben. Oh, go ahead.
With the water main extension, all good, won't be set that would like. The farm would be. The sand project. They can like make.
Yeah, so we've actually. What is out to bid right now is just a piece that would go basically to not quite to the CTW building, so just past the bug line. Just past Dudovik, just past the Collie Farm. The rest of that is not under design yet, even kind of waiting to see, this agreement would need to get passed for proceeding with that. However, we've used the model, the water model, to take a look at various water main sizes. We took a look at a 16-inch water main versus a 12-inch water main. And what we found actually is that where we'll be connecting to Sussex over by their yard waste site. Their pressures are already almost 100 PSI. Yeah. And in order to make that compatible with Lannon's system, we have to have a pressure reducing valve station at the border of Town Line Road. And Good Hope, so right when it comes in, we'll knock off at least 20 pounds, probably 25, at least 25 pounds. And because you have to take off 25 pounds anyways, you can actually get by with a smaller pipe size. And still get the same amount of flow that we need at that pressure.
And that takes care of Village Hills.
Correct.
We're gonna have to put up a pressure increasing station now.
Correct. Yep.
What size is the main on Main Street?
There's a small run that's 16-inch and everything else is 12-inch. So I believe it's 16-inch from just a little bit south of here up to Lannon Motors. At approximately, and then before the bug line, it steps down to 12-inch.
This was put in at 16 because at one time we were gonna do a joint project with Menominee Falls.
Correct.
Menominee Falls was gonna put a water tower by Millville. It was gonna come down Lannon Road. And it's gonna tie in here, and that's why this was 16 inches. But that,
I allowed to ask a question, Ben, the board, is that
Not at this point.
related to this? My question on that, it's if you. That, well, she eventually develop out there.
It's not, and actually, I took a look at the model, what will by and large. Well, I should say by far and away help the system out more. Is finding a way to loop the water main. Around Jake's Park and back into Overstone. So if you're familiar with where the bus company is at, there's a little wedge shaped lot between there. And Filtration Concepts. And then eventually Overstone. Knowing that we would want to loop into that village owned lot eventually, because that's where a water tower was always planned. In Overstone, we had them put a stub all the way to the property line of Filtration Concepts. So it's kind of, you know, if we can find a way to kind of get along that back property line and down through the park, then that kind of creates a grid of types all the way, because right now from Lannon Road on north, it's just one single pipe going the whole way. And we took a look at, okay, what if that was 16 inch? Does that really help? Maybe an extra 200 gallons per minute. But if you can loop that water main eventually, it gets you like an extra 500 or 600 gallons per minute. Starts to really make a difference.
Mike, if it's on the same topic.
Yeah, my question would be, is there been a study within Lannon for future land that is available for development? I know in Sussex right now, being involved with their board quite a bit, they have 800 available acres, that's it. So I'm curious, or would ask the question, has there been a study of how many available acres are, so that you can really make a educated,
We did that 30 years ago.
but into the future now?
No, I said we did that study of how big Lannon would be in the next 30 years. We projected that Lannon would be about 3,000
Because
people.
as Sussex grows, there may not be, even with that connector. And they're putting a well in that would be able to still serve Lannon with Lannon's growth over the next 30 years, and maybe it's advantageous. To just really look at our own system right now with the tower versus.
We model, we factor in a bunch of that stuff that we know is known or likely to happen. And then they bend strand, they make some.
How many acres are
assumptions
available
about-
for development yet?
I couldn't name you the acres offhand, but I would venture a guess of about 300, 250 to 300. And we put into, every single vacant parcel. Cause you gotta think Holly Farm itself is about 60. Behind the cemetery, I think there's a total of 100 if you were to
there's
include
one
all
over
that land.
Yep.
There's the gross property, there's even some stuff back by Rams. Where we've looked at alternate uses, so really maybe it's closer to 200.
Yeah.
150 to 200, but we went parcel by parcel. And based on the comprehensive land use plan, looked at how many water connections are feasible on each of these parcels. And that's what we did to come up with our flow needed, and that's what we've been using for the water model, like Patrick said, and for talking with Sussex about the flow rate. It really represents a quote unquote ultimate full build out for the village.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Attorney's report.
No specific.
Thanks for letting me ask that question.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, big boy. President's report, I'll keep this fairly short too. This one lined out, we already talked about the car show. I don't know, some of you might have been here. Still had a pretty good turnout, I think. The threat of rain, some competing events, I think definitely brought down the number of cars. But hopefully it was still a successful show, and I'm sure Jan will give us her after action report, in the near future, but, seemed like a pretty successful event. The Lions, had a big breakfast. Did you run out of sausage again this year? I got some this year.
No, there's quite a bit of sausage left over. Ran out of eggs.
Oh, well,
For the first time ever.
one of
No,
these
for-
years,
for
one of
twelve
these years,
days.
you'll get the balance right.
Make sure you got sauce.
Yeah. I did. I made sure I got here earlier this time too. And then, I won't go into great depth about it, because we'll talk more about it, I'm sure, in the budget workshops, but. The DOR has released, some preliminary new equalized values and net new construction potential numbers. As you can imagine, our community was, the highest percentage in the county, for growth. Equalized value went up another roughly 45 million this year. Which brings the total equalized value for the village of Landon up to just a shade over $337 million. 2024 assessment, so. It's approaching, I think, 3 times what we were at about 6 years ago. We borrow more. Borrowing capacity is very healthy.
Yeah.
And that will, have that conclude my report. Item number 16 and 17, may convene into a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 1 sub G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice and the strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is likely to become involved in with respect to 1, the unpaid water bill for the property in the village of Landon, more commonly known as Landon Estates, located at approximately 20179 West Good Hope Road, Landon, Wisconsin 53046. We will do a, you like a roll call on each of these,
Yeah.
right? So we'll do a roll call vote on, entering into closed session for item 16. Lake,
Yes.
Pelatola Roby,
Here, yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Yates, yes. Moore,
Yes.
Grenier,
Yes.
Summers.
Yes.
Item number 17, may convene into a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851 E and G for the purpose of delivering and conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session and for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation which is likely to become involved in with respect to the failure to date for the adjoining property owners to provide cost figures pertaining to potential repairs if needed to a private road providing access to a lot which the village owns that is complicating its ultimate sale. Roll call vote, Lake,
Yes.
Pelatola Roby.
Yeah.
Newman.
Yes.
Yates, yes. Moore,
Yes.
Grenier,
Yes.
Summers.
Yes.
I still need a motion in a second for those before.
I make a-
Motion. Okay, we're on the closed session on item 16 and 17.
I will second. Oh,
You
we
wanna
will,
do
we will
roll calls?
second.
No, it's fine.
Many people.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion, a second, presumably the same votes. We will move into closed session and take a brief recess.
Jeremy.
Good.
I make a motion to adjourn.
You have a motion and a second to reconvene into open session. Nicole, would you open the door, please? Thank you.
Just in case someone's out there waiting.
There isn't. I can see it.
Okay.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, Doug.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, we're adjourned.